Before I go any further with measuring this animal, I'm going to take some cotton balls, okay? And I'm going to plug up certain features which had been leaking. I've had this fellow in my refrigerator for a couple of days, allowing him to basically to drain so that he wouldn't be draining out on camera. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little wisp of cotton ball and I'm going to plug his nostrils, quite simply, like so. You want to get it in there. Oops. You want to get it in there and you want to keep it in there. I'm basically looking to block any more body fluid and blood from flowing out the animal through the major openings, which would be the nostrils, the mouth, and the anus, or what many taxidermy books refer to as the vent. Why they call it a vent? I don't know. I call it the anal opening. It's more exact, really. Get it as far in as you possibly can. Now, if you were making a death mask, you would want to get that all the way into the nostrils as well, and it would act as a block, which would keep. I would be using alginate. It would keep the alginate from flowing too far up into the nose. Also, if you want to make a death mask from a mold from silicone, you can do that, and that would definitely keep silicone from flowing down into the head. I'm going to take a little larger piece of cotton. I'm going to put it into the mouth. Be careful you do not, and get it down to the back of the throat, as you can see. It's right down the back of the throat. But you want to be careful that you don't scratch yourself on the teeth, okay? I would be wearing gloves normally when I do stuff like this. I don't know why I haven't put them on yet. I'm getting ready to measure, and I'm just preparing the otter. Now you can see here the lower lip has gotten quite dry. It's gotten quite dry. And I'm going to take care of that in just a moment. Again, I'm going to go in with on the side, pull down the gum, expose the inner lip lining, and from the inside, I'm going to insert the tip of the needle and inject. Okay, it's not in there all the way. I need to get a little further down in there. There we go. There we are. You can see the lip blowing up with the fluid. Pull that out. Go a little further forward. Oops. Got to try and get it inserted. It won't do any good if it's just on the surface. Again, turn it so that the opening is away from the bone. Whoops. All right, it's not in there. Okay, let me go in from the top. Go from the top down and inject some solution. There we go. There we go. Now you see how nice that's been blown up? Okay. Again, I'm going to go in right from the front, just behind the lower incisors, and inject. Inject. Again, turn the opening so that it's exposed. You just want to press on the plunger. You don't want to push the entire syringe through. You don't want to come out, you don't want the needle to come out through the chin. Okay, there we go. That's well injected. Now, they do have a tight lower lip. They do have a tight lower lip. I'm going to inject once more. This time I'm going from the outside just under the lower lip, just behind the lip line. And I'm going to inject what I'm going to inject. Draw this out a little bit, very carefully. That's pretty tight in there. Okay. I mean, they don't have a lower lip like a bear, for example, where a bear's lower lip will just completely pull away. But now at least it's got some, it's very, very tight adhesion at the front of the lower incisors. Very tight adhesion. Most, I should say, of the weasel clan is like that. You'll find that in badgers, mink, weasels. That's very common. In raccoons, it's very loose. It's very loose. Okay. Now you notice the blood and juice came off the teeth with that operation. Okay, I'm also going to check the pads. I'm going to check the nose. I'm just going to make sure the nose is, okay, the nose is nice and soft. The nose is nice and soft. You can see right there. Nice and soft. That's not otter blood, that's strawberry juice. I know, a little more information than you need. But now the rest of this animal, more specifically his tootsies, his toes, his feet, the pads are pretty tough. They're pretty tough. Now you can inject them just a little bit, just to soften them up just a bit, make them a little easier for turning, and you do it the same way we did with the lips. We just simply go in about at the hairline. Whoops. You want to avoid stabbing yourself in the fingers. And go in let's go in at the hairline, not skim across the hairline. This is much easier to do when you've got the animal directly in front of you and you're not working off to the side so the camera can get the view. Now let us see if this is going to work. I got it up. Yeah, there it is. There it goes. Filling up with some fluid. Very good. Very good. All right, that softens that just a bit. Let's get the toe from underneath here. This needle creates a very, very, very small hole. I want this to show up, so I'm going to get in as close as I dare. Okay, and let's give it a little injection. There we go. That's way in there. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. They have a very, very rough texture to the paw, to the pads of the toes. They're very rough. That allows them to have a good grip when they hold on to food between their paws. Now the bent needle, that doesn't matter. As long as it's not broken, it will still function. Just bend it in the opposite direction and you got a nice straight needle again, or straight enough for this purpose. Okay, I'm going to finish measuring, and this I'm going to employ the calipers. Now to begin the measurements of the face, the head is the most important feature to be measured with the skin on. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to take my calipers. I've had this caliper since about 1966, 1967. This was purchased from the J.W. Elwood Supply Company, which was their Chieftain brand. You go from the very tip of the nose into the front corner of the eye. Now you don't want to squash the corner. You want to give a nice, even spacing to it. And on this we're getting 1 5/8. He's over 1.5 inch. So he's 1 5. Let me double check that. Let me use sometimes it helps to use a caliper that's not quite as loose as my old one. I might need to take this and hammer it a little tight. This is another old one, not as old as my small calipers. But I'm going to take this, open it, and I'm going to fit it into the front corner and then down to the tip of the nose. I don't want to push in on the nose with the calipers. That's a very easy thing to do and a way to make a mistake in the measurement. Let's see what we've got here now. Luckily, this stainless steel rule goes right to the very end. Okay, you don't have to come in a little bit to start your measurements. You go right to the end of the rule. And yeah, the old one was right. 1 5/8 inch nose to eye. So I take my measurement chart. Now this is the chart that I use for the full body. Okay, this is the full body chart. I'm going to be using the newer one that I made. I'm going to get some of this stuff out of my way here on the table. This is the new measurement chart, and what I do is I put the collector's name at the top. Then I also put in the CITES tag number just above or below it, wherever I place it here. Now for the facial measurements, I made up another drawing, another chart, and that's over on this side. This has everything I need to record all of the facial details. So now, nose to eye in inches was 1 7/8 inches. Now that's fine for ordering a commercial mannequin. Okay? Now, for myself, I'm going to take this measurement. I'm going to turn my ruler around to the side that presents me with millimeters. And I'm going to record these measurements in metric because it's more exact for sculpting. More exact and more correct to use metric. So in the metric system, he has got a nose to eye of 42 millimeters. I will mark that on the chart as well. I'll either put it above or below, it doesn't matter, but it will be marked on this chart. Nose to eye, 42 millimeter. Okay? Now that's for sculpting purposes. And you can see this collects as much data as possible for the animal's face, the animal's head. Okay? I will go the length of the skull, front to back. I will do rear corner of the nose to the front corner of the eye, length of the mouth, the distance between the at the septum, or the philtrum, which is from the base of the nostrils down to the center of the lower lip. I'll measure through the head at various points with the calipers to get a width. I then do the same thing here. Now, the reason I leave the glass eyes in, I try to get a measurement of the head with the glass eyes in, and that will give me a pretty decent dimension of where the eyes should be located on a mount. When I'm sculpting, I will set the glass eyes to that depth. Okay? I'm going to continue measuring the head. Again, for the full head, I will use the calipers, not the tape measure. I want and I'll show you, we'll probably get close to the same measurement. Either feel for the back of the skull. The back of the skull on most mammals has a little point to it, and I lock that in at the point, come forward, and I lock that down on the nose. Now in metric, I have, in metric measurements, we have 125, 6, 7, 128 millimeters. 128 millimeters. In inches, the length of the head measures out at 5 inches. Mark on my chart, 5 inches, 128 millimeters. From the back edge of the nostril to the front corner of the eye, you see how much smaller that is? In inches, we have 1 3/16, 1 3/16. In millimeters, that gives me 30 millimeters. Now, just for the halibut, I'm going to use a tape measure. Go from the front of the nose to the back of the head. And you see how this does not measure out quite the same. Oh, he's a little over 5 inches, but we're not getting an exact measurement using a tape measure there. You're better off because you're not really getting to the front of the nose. The front of the nose is down here. You can use a tape. You can tape front corner of the eye to the nose, if you wish. And I got, oh, see, it's not as exact here. Now this is showing about 1.5 inches. With the calipers, you're going a little over. And most sculptors, when they measure their animal for their form, their mannequin that they're going to sculpt, they're going to use calipers, and they're going to go with measurements and then transfer that to inches. Or, as I did, they'll use 2 sides of the same rule, one with the metric measurements, the other one with the USA measurements. Okay? But that's why I believe using calipers. Another measurement I'm going to take right now, I'm going to show how I do the front measurement from along the philtrum from the base of the nose, the base of the nose pad, to the front corner of the lips, upper lips. Okay, I've laid the animal on his back, obviously. Now you could use this is really loose. You could use the calipers like this. I prefer, on this type of measurement, to cross the blades and get a straighter line. The base of the nose pad down the philtrum. The philtrum is the center line, which doesn't show much on the otter, but there's a center line down to where the left and right upper lip meet. I'll take that line, measure it, put it down on my measurements on my rule, and on that I'm getting 16 millimeters. So this is 16 millimeters. I'm not going to worry about inches on the face for myself. Another measurement I will take the width of the chin. I'm going to have to use this other one here. This is a little tighter, and I'm getting more, not exact, but it's staying put. And where I take this is just behind the 2 lobes of the lower lip. See the lower lip lobe here, like so. Okay, I'm just, actually I'll just go just ahead of where that begins to get the width of the chin. And in my metric measurements on that, I'm getting 17 millimeter. Let's see, another measurement I record is the distance between the bottom openings of the nostril. Now this you want to be careful. You don't want to go into the nostril. Oops. You don't want to go into the nostrils. You want to concentrate where the nose pad, the bottom of the nose pad is. And that detail, while it will be sculpted onto the mannequin, onto the head form of the mannequin, it's not going to be really detailed. I'm not making a reproduction nose. That I've got 15, 16, 17. It's the same width. I've got 17 on that measurement as well. 17 millimeter. Now, just for fun, just for hits and giggles, I'm going to take the measurement on the eyeballs. Let me set this up for the camera. All right. I'm going to touch the tips of the calipers to the glass eyes without pushing them way down into the skull. This is really an impossible measurement to get on a living animal. And just like so. And on that I get, ladies and gents, I get 55 millimeters on the eyeballs. 55 millimeters eyeball to eyeball. Like I say, that's also a good measurement for you to take as a taxidermist. It will aid you in setting the eyes in the form, in the mannequin that you purchase. Okay? You'll know if you're setting them too deep or too bug-eyed. That and reference photos. I've put up reference photos throughout this video, and you can see the setting, the depth of the otter's eyes. They're relatively medium deep set. They're definitely not bug-eyed. They're not as bulging eyes as a squirrel, for instance. Their eyes are set very deep, very soft, and that goes a long way into when they dive into the water. Their third eyelid comes across, and everything is made for them to sail through the water. Even the setting of their eyes is important to that. Okay. Another measurement I take is the front corner of the eyelid to the front corner of the eyelid on each side. That's another good one for you to know. This way you know if you need to make any modifications on the head of your mannequin, you can do so. This is 43 millimeters, and it goes on and on and on like this. Another measurement is the width of the nasal ridge, the nasal bones right here. Again, these are facial measurements taken while the skin is in place. And those you can press. You can press right down to until you feel the bone. And on that I've got 28 millimeters. Okay, another measurement. Well, I have to turn them over to do that one. The width of the muzzle. The width of the muzzle. I'll hold the mouth closed a little bit. The width of the muzzle, here like so. You don't want to press down to the bone on the muzzle because the muzzle is soft tissue. And on this otter I have 50 millimeters for the width of his muzzle. Now remember, the width of his eyes was 55 millimeters. Okay? So the width of his muzzle is just 5 millimeters less. Again, that's all streamlining for this particular species of mammal. That is how the mammal becomes streamlined. Now the cheekbones. You need to find them here and measure their width. Now this can be measured until you hit bone. Just make sure you've got the cheekbone on one side, cheekbone on the other side. Cheekbone, aka also known as the zygomatic arch. And on this I've got 72. So the zygomatic arch, the cheekbones, is 72 millimeters in width. Okay. Let's see, another measurement that I need to take, and I'll be doing that. Let's see, I can take the width of the head at the masseter muscles. I'm sorry, the temporal muscles. Masseter muscles are down here. We'll take a depth through there as well. But the temporal muscles on the side, which gives you the width of the animal's head, 72 as well. Masseter muscles, the jaw muscles, the cheek muscles. Seventy-seven. Seventy-seven. Okay, I think that just about wraps that up. I just have to take the measurement between the ears, and that's on the top of the head. Some of you may ask, well, why do you need to know the width between the ears? Not between the ears, but at the top setting of the ears. Well, when you mount your otter, you want to know that the ears are being set in the correct place. No? Yes. And for that, you will want to catch this measurement as well. So we set it on one side. We go to the other side. Now you need to know where the ears attach. Their attachment point is a little further forward than what you're seeing on the surface. Their attachment point is right here. Okay, so we could droop their ears down like a little dog. Well, you want to get that attachment point at the top of the head. And on that, in millimeters, I've got 75 millimeters. 75 millimeter. You know, after measuring a bunch of deer heads during the season, to get in some life-size work, it's kind of nice. You know, all of a sudden you're dealing with very, very small measurements compared to those of a deer. Okay. All right, now some more body measurements will include the width of the neck just behind the skull, and then further down here as well. So just behind the skull, I've got it at 74 millimeter. That's the width. 74 millimeter. And down here, just about at the shoulders, I've got it at 84. 84. Now, there's a wider bulge here at the center, and for sculpting purposes, I will take the wider bulge measurement as well. That gives me 92. $92mm on the wide. The neck comes down, bulges out, and goes in again. That's the structure of a river otter. Another measurement to take would be a depth measurement at the same two places here. And that's from the center of the cervical area down to the throat, and I've got 73 on that. So he's 73 by 74. Okay. Another one will be the depth just ahead of the shoulders. Again, the center of the vertebral area down to the throat. And I'm getting 82. Again, 84 this way, now 82 depth-wise. Now, this area where it bulges out on the side, it maintains the same straight line down the front of the throat. That's unnecessary. Now, when you're sculpting, you have to bear in mind you're measuring a dead animal. There's no blood pressure. There's no plumpness to the muscles. The animal is dead. That's a fact. So you take these measurements with a bit of a grain of salt. What I'm going to do, another step in my process, is to make a contact sketch of this animal. I'm going to continue measuring him off camera until I'm complete. Then I'm going to create a contact sketch on camera. That's prior to skinning. He will get a contact skin of his carcass after skinning as well, as including digital photographs nowadays. All right, I've taken quite a few measurements already, mostly the forequarters, arms and whatnot. What I want to do now is I want to get the depth through the ribs, okay, in two places. Up closer to the spine and then further down towards the belly. Now the best way to do that is to pose it as I showed in the still, where I've got the front feet under and the hind feet tucked under, to help kind of lift the body up just a little bit. Of course, it's not a live animal, so it's not going to be quite as well lifted as a live animal would be. But in the meantime, I want to get a width measurement at this point here on the animal's side. I want to go through and I want to record that measurement here. And on that, I get 102, the width of 102 millimeters, 102. Further down, let's see, just a little further down, just a wee further down, I get a width of 110, and that's marked on the chart as well. Further down still, much further down here. Now this is the fun part. This way you have to kind of manipulate the skin so as not to reopen the calipers. Okay, 110. It maintains that measurement. Now that's good. That's good. Had it splayed out any, I would have to ignore it and reposition the carcass, because the rib cage comes in at the bottom, doesn't bulk out. And again, the animal is streamlined, built for moving through its environment, through the water. I'm going to take a width measurement at the last rib. You simply find the last rib, which is here, and we're going to take a measurement through the last rib. And that should be wider, and it is. That is 121. The width is 121 millimeters. Now I'm going to take a width of the lumbar muscles, right back here. Okay, the lumbar muscles, right here, like so. I'm doing these with the hair on for the simple reason that the skin is kind of holding everything together. Once the skin comes off, the carcass will just sort of flop apart, flop away from itself. I don't want that. This I have got 62 millimeters on the lumbar. That seems correct to what I've done before. Now, I'm going to get a measurement at the width at the head of the pelvis. Now that actually I think could be done after the animal is skinned. I can find it a hell of a lot easier than I can try and find it now. Actually, I have found it now. I found the head of the pelvis right here. Okay. I will check it again after the animal's been skinned. I've got 73 on that. That feels right. Now, this region right in here, further back, I'm going to get that. Now we're heading down towards the base of the tail. Again, these areas will be checked later. I've got 62 on that. Okay, well, it seems it's the same width as the lumbar region, which makes sense. This is a river otter after all. I took a measurement from the head of the humerus to the last rib, and I got a 294 millimeter measurement. I need to take from the head of the humerus to the tuberosity of the ischium. I have to lay him on his side again. Tuberosity simply means the point of the ischium, which is the farther rearmost bone of the pelvic girdle. And I have to measure the hind legs, the feet and whatnot. Then I have to measure depth and width of the tail itself. So I have a few more things to measure on him. I just wanted to go ahead and point up some measurements taken here. Oh, one more I'm going to do while he's in this position. I'm going to go to the base of his tail. You know what I might do here? Just for shits and giggles, I may go ahead and take another nose to base of tail measurement, just for the hell of it. Especially with him now in this sort of semi-upright, nearly live position. You press this down onto the animal. Follow the contours of the body. Most important thing, follow the contours of the body. Let's see how close we got to it last time. Okay, we've got... Okay, see how much it gets taken up. Here, in this position, with the head raised, okay, now with the head raised the way it is, and the neck pinched in a little bit, he's gone down to 66 millimeters. I'm sorry, 66 centimeters, which is 666 millimeters. He originally, when he was laid out, his total let's see, where is his total? Okay, the nose to base of tail while he was laid on his side came out to 725 millimeter. Okay, now with the head propped up like this, it's 666 millimeters. So that's a good note to make right there. Note to self. That's why you measure them laying down. That's why you make contact sketches. While he's laid on his side, I will pose him in this sort of semi-raised position and make a contact sketch of his carcass and of his body while in this position. Now, I'm going to go ahead. I want to finish posing him up to where I want to get him for his standing pose. Okay, now with our specimen posed in a more relaxed, semi-upright pose, where he's more along the lines of when he was measured laying while he was on his side, I am now getting the same measurements I got that I recorded while he was laying on his side. Okay, I recorded his length from the tip of the nose to the base of his tail at 28.5 inches. That's what I've got right now. I've got him at 28.5 inches. Overall length we've got at this point in this position is pretty close to where he was. See, this keeps shifting on me. I had 46 7/8, so right now I'm pretty close to that, in that I'm simply pushing down on the tape measure to make sure it's laying flat against the body as I go, and then I'm not pulling it, or I'm not pulling it back or pushing it forward either way. Right here I've got 46 7/8. 46 7/8 is what I just checked on my chart. So yeah, all the measurements now are balancing out to where the measurements I took while he was laying down. Okay, so the only measurements that I'm missing now are the measurements of the hind leg, and there are several to take. The first one I did take, I took the length of the hind foot from the front of the pad to the heel. That measurement's been taken. These measurements must be taken with the skin on. Okay, you cannot take them once the thing has been skinned and the pad has been inverted and the bones are in the toe bones are in. Most of the toe bones are in the foot. I try to skin all the way down to the tips of the toes. I may have to actually inject these toes before I start skinning, but you saw how that was done for the face. That will be done off camera as well. So I got 66 millimeter from here to here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to complete some measurements. We're going to go to take the depth. Now when you take the depth of the leg with the skin on, you want to be sure you don't include this flap of skin back here. Okay, you see this with my fingers coming up like so? That's just a flap of skin. That connects from the heel to the ischium area of the animal, to the rear of the pelvis. What I want to do is I want to go through like so. I want to go through here and get the width, and I've got 25, 26 on the width right here. So that's 26. Then I want to record the depth of that area. So I will go make sure I'm against the musculature of the leg and forward. Okay? And there I have 30. And that's how you continue on through this entire thing. The width of the at the ischium will be done on the carcass. I'm going to continue the measurement of the legs. Well, here I'm going to, just as a for instance, let's start the measurements on the tail. At the base of the tail, we have the width of the tail near its base. they look much wider because of all the fur, you see. That's why you press down to the muscles. And on that, I've got 41 for the width. 41. It's actually better to be done while it's actually a carcass. In the same place I do the depth. That's from the top to the bottom. So the depth measurement, that near base of the tail is 25, 6, 7, 27. So he's 41 wide by 27 deep. And this is in millimeters. Okay. Another measurement to take will be from the base of the tail to between the shoulder blades. That's another body length to take. So I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. I'm going to take this tape measure. We're going to find where the tail, the base of the tail, starts at the body right here. Drop the tail down. I'm going to hold my tape measure starting there. Press it down on the body as I go. I'm down the center line of the spine. And I'm going right between the blades of the scapula. And I've got, in inches, I've got about 17. In millimeters, I have 430. So that is 430 millimeters. .430 millimeters, 43 centimeters. Okay. So now I've got that measurement. I did the neck from the back of the skull to the point between the shoulders, and I came out with 157. Again, these will be checked after the skin has been removed, and I have more concise or more precise anchor points for my measurements. These essentially are guesses. I'm doing it for the camera. I will redo them for the sculpture from the carcass. I'm going to finish up measuring the hind legs. Then I'm going to go ahead and show how I construct a contact sketch. Always fun. Okay, to create a contact sketch, the animal is laid out on a good-sized piece of paper. In this case, it's a piece of white butcher paper. I've used brown paper before. I've used white paper in the past. I've used paper grocery sacks in the past. But what I want to do is I just want to get an overall feel for the size of the animal. And to do this, it's a contact sketch. The animal is in contact with paper, and you simply draw around the dimensions, the outer dimensions of the animal using pencil. I will then enhance it with marker. But to start, it's done in pencil. The entire length of the animal is recorded as much as possible. This is not making it out to the tip of the tail. I should have moved it up on the paper, but that's okay for this purpose. His testicular sac here. Now I lift one hind leg so I can put the other hind leg in position and I want it. And I'm actually tracing around it. I'm making contact with the body of the animal, the toes, all of him. Now, it's always best, if you possibly can, to go with the direction of the hair. So with this fellow, we're going like so. It got a little kinked here. Let me see if I can undo this just a bit. There we go. Okay, the camera. The tripod of the camera just kind of pressed against it a bit, kind of bunched it up. But you don't want it to bunch up or the pencil will tear through, and that's not what you want to do. Okay, here's the belly of the beast. Now I want to put this foreleg in position. I want to outline it as well, like so. You're tracing around the animal's outer dimensions. Details can be put in later. Details such as the toes and whatnot, that can all be drawn in later. I'm going to reach up here, I'm going to go around the head while I hold it in position. You want to keep your pencil on the perpendicular. Don't let it veer out or veer in. You want to keep it well up and down. All right, I'm going to roll him off. And what we've got here now is a nice outline of this beautiful creature's body. Now on a separate piece of paper, I will do a ventral outline. This is simply a profile outline. On another piece of paper, I'll lay him on his belly and trace around him in that way. Now I'm going to mark this male and a North American River Otter. Have no idea of his age. I've not weighed him yet either. I will get a weight on him eventually. But there we go. And to fill in the details, I will lay the animal alongside the drawing that I've just made. Now I need to put some paper towel under his head to keep any more blood from getting on the paper. And I'm going to put the details in. You'll see it in the end. And here we have it. Contact sketch of our otter specimen. And that's a nice additional way to refer to the specimen while it's being mounted or sculpted and then mounted. You have a little something you've done with your hands. There's this old thing about if it goes from your eye to your brain to your hand to paper, it will tend to stay with you more than if you just look at it or take a photograph of it. So it's an old practice. It's an old school practice. I like to still do it. Many of the masters like to do it. It's something we just plain do in our practice. So from here, I'm going to start skinning the otter.